Everyone, Hare Krishna. Very nice to see everybody here today, and to know that there are others who are listening in online. We thank you very much for spending part of your morning to get a little empowerment, get your batteries charged before we have to go out there and face that material world, which some of us have to do. This is Rupanuga Das here with you this morning. For those of you who have not yet met me, I'm a disciple of His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, grand disciple of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. This morning we're going to be reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd canto, 2nd chapter, no, 5th chapter, text number 21. We begin with 21 and we'll read through text number 35. So we invite everyone to, if you've got a book close at hand or if you've got your phone tuned into database, then you can read along with us when we begin. First, we will invoke the blessings of the Supreme Lord. Invocation. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Dhanavallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Dhanavallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Gaura Premananda Hari Hari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Charja Hasto Tarasatya Sri Srimad His Divine Loving Grace, Abhay Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ki. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Charja Asto Tarasata Sri Srimad His Divine Loving Grace. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ki. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki. ISKCON Guru Parampara Ki. Shri Rup Shri Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Dasa Raghunath Sat Goswami Prabhu Ki. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki. Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhana ki Shri Vrindavan ki Shri Mathura Dham ki Shri Mayapur Navaduit Dham ki Shri Jagannath Puri Dham ki Shri Shri Radha Kalachandi Dham ki Ganga Devi ki Jamuna Mai ki Tulsi Devi ki Bhakti Devi ki Samavita Bhakta Vrinda ki Brihat Madanga Transcendental Book and Prasadam Distribution ki Nitai Gaura Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories, all glories, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurabadi Pacharine Ne Vishesha Shunyabadi Pastatharesha Tarine Jai Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya
Narayanam Namaskritya.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Devim Saraswatim Yasan
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam.
Tato Jayam Udirayat
Tato Jaya Mudirayet.
Nasta Praeshu Bhadreshu
Nasa Praeshu Bhadreshu.
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya.
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke.
Bhakti Bhavati Naistaki
Bhaktir Bhavati Naistaki.
Rantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. So we'll begin by reading translations all the way through from text number 21 to text number 35. A lot of reading to do. Okay, so Janaki Devi, would you kindly begin with us? Text number 21.
The Lord, who is the controller of all energies, thus creates by
It's not very loud. Can you turn the mic on?
his own potency.
Hold on just one moment, please. We have people listening in on the outside, and one of the reasons that I keep the mic so close to me, and I naturally have a loud voice, I want everybody to be able to hear what's going on in here, especially from you guys.
Hare Krishna? Better.
Good.
Yes.
Thank you.
The Lord, who is the controller of all energies, thus creates, by his own potency, eternal time, the fate of all living entities, and their particular nature, for which they were created, and he again merges them independently.
Sumedhavi Vishaka Sundari Devidasi. Would you read next, please? Text 22.
After the incarnation of the first Purusha, Karanara Navasai Vishnu, the Mahat...
Sometimes called Karana Dakashayi Vishnu, but it's spelled a different way here. Prabhupada uses both spellings in his books. Go ahead, please.
The Mahat Tattva, or the principles of material creation, take place, and then time is manifested, and in course of time the three qualities appear. Nature means the three qualitative appearances. They transform into activities.
Okay. Dinatarini Devi Dasi. Text number 23, please.
Material activities are caused by the Mahat Tattvas being agitated. At first, there is transformation of the modes of goodness and passion, and later, due to the mode of ignorance, its knowledge and different activities of material knowledge come into play.
Okay. Bhaktose, please.
Text 24. the self-centered materialistic ego, thus being transformed into three features, becomes known as the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance, in three divisions, namely the powers that evolve matter, knowledge of material creation, and intelligence that guides such materialistic activities. Narada, you are quite competent to understand this.
Okay, so this is who talking to Narada Muni? Lord Brahma. That's correct. Okay, Mr. Dunrapu, would you please read text number 25?
Sorry. Text 25. From the darkness of false ego, the first of the five elements, namely the sky, is generated. Its subtle form is the quality of sound, exactly as the seer is in relationship with the sea.
Mr. Dunrapu, please, text number 26 through 29.
Because the sky is transformed, the air is generated with the quality of touch, and by previous succession the air is also full of sound, and the basic principles of duration of life, sense perception, mental power, and bodily strength. When the air is transformed in course of time, and nature's course, fire is generated, taking shape with the sense of touch and sound. Since fire is also transformed, there is a manifestation of water, full of juice and taste. As previously, it also has form and touch, and it is also full of sound. And water, being transformed from all variegatedness on earth, appears odorous, and, as previously, becomes qualitatively full of juice, touch, sound, and form, respectively.
Janaki Devi, would you please read text 30?
From the mode of goodness, the mind is generated and becomes manifest, as also the 10 demigods controlling the bodily movements. Such demigods are known as the controller of directions, the controller of air, the sun god, the father of Daksha, Prajapati, the Ashvini Kumaras, the fire god, the king of heaven, the worshipable deity in heaven, the chief of the Adityas, and Brahmaji, the Prajapati, all come into existence.
And Sumeravi, Vishaka Sundari Devidasi, would you read text number 30? This will be the last one.
By further transformation of the mode of passion, the sense organs like the ear, skin, nose, eyes, tongue, mouth, hands, genitals, legs, and the outlet for evacuating, together with intelligence and living energy, are all generated.
All right, so let's get back over to text number 21, please. Is that up? We're getting there. I will read the transliteration of the text line by line, and if you would repeat after me, please. Kalam karma swabhavam cha mayesho mayaya swaya atman yadrichaya praptam vibhubhushur upadare. Let's do it one more time. Kalam karma swabhavam cha mayesho mayaya swaya atmam yadrichaya praptam vibhubhushur upadare. All right. You want to have individual recitations? All right. Someone read the translation. I'm not the translation. Read the Sanskrit. You want to begin? Just begin. Kalam karma sabhavam cha mayesho mayaya swaya atman yadrichaya praptam vibhubhushur upadare. Kalam Kalam, eternal time. Karma, the fate of the living entity. Swabhavam, nature. Cha, also. Maya, potency. Isya, the controller. Mayaya, by the energy. Swaya, of his own. Atman, and in parentheses, Atmani, unto his self. Jadricha, Jadrichaya, independently. Praptam, being merged in. Vibhu Bhushu, appearing differently. Uparhadi, accepted for being created again. Once again, the text, the Lord, who is the controller of all energies, thus creates by his own potency eternal time, the fate of all living entities and their particular nature for which they were created, and he again merges them independently. Just would you begin with paragraph number 1 of the purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai.
The creation of the material world, wherein the conditioned souls are allowed to act subordinately by the Supreme Lord, takes place again and again, after being repeatedly annihilated. The material creation is something like a cloud in the unlimited sky. The real sky is the spiritual sky, eternally filled with the rays of the Brahmajyoti, and a portion of this unlimited sky is covered by the Mahat Tattva, a cloud of the material creation, in which the conditioned souls who want to lord it against the will of the Lord, are put into play as they desire, under the control of the Lord, by the agency of his external energy. As the rainy season appears and disappears regularly, the creation takes place and is again annihilated under the control of the Lord, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 8:19.
All right, would you stop there, please? And Janaki Devi, would you please begin there with So the Creation?
So the creation and annihilation of the material world is a regular action of the Lord, just to allow the conditioned souls to play as they like, and thereby create their own fate of being differently created again in terms of their independent desires at the time of annihilation. The creation, therefore, takes place at a historical date, as we are accustomed to think of everything which has a beginning in our tiny experience. The process of creation and annihilation is called anadi, or without reference to date regarding the time the creation first took place. Because the duration of even a partial creation is 8,640,000,000 years, the law of creation is, however, as mentioned in the Vedic literatures, that it is created at certain intervals and is again annihilated by the will of the Lord.
Okay, stop there, please. And would you read next, please?
The whole material, or even the spiritual creation, is a manifestation of the energy of the Lord, just as the light and heat of a fire are different manifestations of the fire's energy. The Lord, therefore, exists in his impersonal form by such expansion of energy, and the complete creation rests on his impersonal feature. Nonetheless, he keeps himself distinct from such creation as the Purnam, or complete, and so no one should wrongly think that his personal feature is not existent due to his impersonal unlimited expansions. The impersonal expansion is a manifestation of his energy, and he is always in his personal feature despite his innumerable unlimited expansions of impersonal energies.
All right, stop there, please. Dina Tarini, would you read?
For human intelligence, it is very difficult to conceive how the whole creation rests on his expansion of energy. But the Lord has given a very good example in the Bhagavad Gita. It is said that although the air and the atoms rest within the huge expansion of the sky, which is like the resting reservoir of everything materially created, still the sky remains separate and unaffected. Similarly, although the Supreme Lord maintains everything created by his expansion of energy, he always remains separate. This is accepted even by Shankaracharya, the great advocate of the impersonal form of the Absolute. He says, Narayanaha Paro Vyaktat, or Narayan exists separately, apart from the impersonal creative energy.
Okay. Dr. Jose Prabhu, would you feel comfortable reading from the beginning of the end of page 262?
The whole creation thus merges within the body of transcendental Narayana at the time of annihilation, and the creation emanates from his body again with the same unchanging categories of fate and individual nature. The individual living entities, being parts and parcels of the Lord, are sometimes described as Atma, qualitatively one in spiritual constitution. But because such living entities are apt to be attracted to the material creation, actively and subjectively, they are therefore different from the Lord.
Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chaksurun Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Sri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaya Darati Swabharantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Jutta Padikamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Savadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karana Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radhakantan Namostute Taptakan Chana Gaurangi He Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhye Cha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Srimate Tamal Krishna Goswaminiti Namane. This is a very detailed account of how the Lord creates. It's not quite as simple as was given in our past reading of the Judeo-Christian Holy Bible, in which it was just stated that the Lord created for 6 days, and on the seventh day he took his rest. But it doesn't tell too much about where the ingredients came from, and it's just that they were created. They just came from thin air, except there was no air, so the air had to be created too. So this is this account is sometimes a little bit tedious to me to read. I hate to make that confession, but it is. Especially after I read it once or twice or three times. And so I wonder sometimes why Shukadev Goswami included all of this information. Well, we could even go back one more conversation and say, why did Lord Brahma tell his son, Narada Muni, all of these details? And isn't it amazing that Shukadev Goswami could recite all of this information, and there is no indication that he was personally present whenever Lord Brahma was speaking to Narada Muni. So just as with many of our literatures, Vedic literatures, the person who is speaking is not necessarily present, physically present at the time the words were being spoken by the speakers, the original speakers, but rather just by his meditation, he was able to hear and see what was going on. And that to me is kind of an amazing thing. I can't imagine it. So we're learning about how intricate the material energy of the Lord is, and how just by his desire he is allowing the creation to take place. Now, what can that do for us? This knowledge. It is very difficult for a person who is atheistic, or a person who simply is not knowledgeable, who is in ignorance of the Vedic literatures. It is very difficult for that person to accept that there is a supreme controller who is in charge of every single detail in the entire material universes, many of them, and also in the spiritual world, in which there are many different locus, or different planets, we can say, where living entities are attracted to go once they have gained liberation from this material world. And getting free of this material world is no small thing, because we come into this world and we are already bringing with us some of our impressions, perhaps some of our memories from the previous lifetimes. We sometimes read about personalities who, even as children, can remember things that happened in their previous lifetime. Most of us cannot. I think I can say that authoritatively. Most of us. Well, or we can say many of us cannot. Or we want to narrow it down even further, I cannot remember what has happened previously in my lifetimes. Have no idea where I was before. But somehow or other, we became conditioned by everything that we heard. In other words, the people who were around us from the time of our birth onward pretty much established our world view of this material creation of the Supreme Lord. Now, if Krishna is beyond if his energies are beyond our ability to perceive them, if they're inconceivable to us, then how is it that we know anything at all about Krishna, except that he chooses to give this information to some of those who are very devout, very much devoted to him? So we get our world view very early on in life. It begins then from the time that, all of these big faces are looking down into the cradle at us, and we're just kind of looking up, bewildered, because we can't figure anything out. Birth is a time of forgetting. William Wordsworth, who is a British poet, wrote an ode on intimations of immortality from recollections of early childhood. How's that for a title? That was the title of his poem. It's actually quite a beautiful poem, and in it he states, "Our birth is but a sleep and a forgetting. The soul that rises with us, our life star, hath had elsewhere its setting, and cometh from afar. Heaven lies about us in our infancy." So it's amazing, isn't it? A person who, as far as we know, never had access to any of the Vedic literatures is able to produce a poem that talks about coming from some distant location into our present location. Our birth is but a sleep and a forgetting. So that means if we're forgetting at our birth, that means that there's something that we have had to forget. And that means all of the experiences of our previous lifetime or lifetimes. Some people have the great misfortune of being able to remember those things, and in some cases, they are very difficult to deal with for individuals. So how do we go about establishing our place in this material world, which is so intricate and difficult to deal with, even when we become older and mature, like when we reach, the grand old age of 21, 22, how about 30, 35, 40? We're still learning a lot about this material world around us, in particular, the personalities who also inhabit different kinds of bodies in this material world. So somehow or other, we have to gain the ability to know how to deal with this. And I don't know about you all, but in the earlier part of this lifetime, I had no training in the existence in this material. I had no idea who I was. As far as I was concerned, I looked down at this body that I have and I say, this is my body. But I don't know who is the possessor of that body. So most of us grew up then thinking, I'll use that term most again, that's too inclusive. I'll say many of us grew up not knowing what we were supposed to accomplish in this world, not even knowing our real identity. And so with the help of our parents and our friends and our teachers and everyone else, our preachers, our rabbis, our ministers, with the help of those personalities, we gained some knowledge. But the one thing that has been particularly lacking up until the time that I met the devotees was to know exactly who I am, and to know where I have come from, and to know how long I'm supposed to be here and what I'm supposed to be doing in this material world. And so we get, little bits and pieces of instructions from various people. Be nice to other people. Be kind. Treat other people as you desire to be treated. And things like that. And work hard because you have responsibilities, especially if you're attracted to someone else, either of the same sex or of the opposite sex, and you plan to live with that person and support that person, then you have to prepare yourself to do that. And so this is, there's one section of Prabhupada's biography written by His Holiness, what was his name? Satsarup Das Goswami Maharaj. Yeah. One portion of that is called a lifetime in preparation. So, of course, he's talking about Srila Prabhupada having been born in a very positive, very highly advanced parentage. His father and mother gave him the beginning, especially his father. He speaks a lot about his father, but I'm sure his mother had as much influence as his father must have had. But his father was the one who determined that he would not go to college and become a lawyer or something. He really wanted his son Abhay Charan to become a proponent of Krishna consciousness. And then when Srila Prabhupada got up later in his life, he met His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj. And from him, he learned how to prosecute this process of Krishna consciousness. And he gave him the instruction, go to the English-speaking worlds and deliver this knowledge to them. So that took, a lot of kindness on the part of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and then on the part of our Srila Prabhupada, Abhay Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada. It took a lot of kind of sympathy for those of us who were in the Western worlds who had no access to this kind of knowledge unless we happened to have come into a family, taken our birth in a family that were practitioners of this philosophy. So we want to become genuine practitioners of this philosophy. And we have to deal with this material world in doing so. And we have learned to accept this body as our own, the bodies of our relatives as our first of kin, and all the people around us as personalities who can have some degree or other of influence on our view of this world. So I think that this is part of Srila Prabhupada's reason for writing such long purports in this chapter talking about the cause of all causes. That's the title of this chapter number 5 in Canto 2. The cause of all causes. So this is part of our preparation for getting on to the higher chapters of the higher cantos in the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's not unimportant at all. It's equally important. Sometimes we have to admit that it's a little difficult for us to go through it, especially if we are reading the purports at the time we're reading the translations. If we go through that way, then it's going to take some time. Some people choose to read only the translations and go through the entire thing, and then go back and start reading purports. I don't have any particular feelings about that one way or another. The main thing is that you get through the reading of these literatures, not only the Srimad Bhagavatam, but also Bhagavad Gita, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Nectar of Devotion. It's necessary for us to get through those, so however we decide we're going to do that, then it's going to make a difference in the way then that we feel about ourselves and about the world around us. Hare Krishna. I'm done. Unless you have some comments or questions. I'd prefer to have questions first and then comments. Does anybody have any questions that have come up in the readings and discussion? Janaki Devi.
Hare Krishna. Such a nice class. Thank you. My question was, it said that the qualities appeared in time, and I was just wondering, did they appear due to like Mahavishnu's doing, or is that Brahma's job? When Brahma appears from the lotus flower and then he creates the universe, so is he in charge of like creating these qualities, and the ingredients just come from Mahavishnu?
Was who in charge of creating the qualities?
Lord Brahma.
Lord Brahma. Okay. Did you finish your question? Okay. Was he responsible, or was this coming directly from Krishna? Is that what you're asking? I'd say both. Lord Krishna took this personality, Brahma, and some people say Brahma, but if you look at the markings in the way, then it's actually Brahma. And Krishna is known as the Supreme Brahman. A lot of the words that we have learned, Mother Lakshmi Priya and my wife and I have learned, we learn to pronounce them by listening to other people, other devotees. And so it's taken some time for us to learn how to read the markings. What are the markings called? Diacritics, the diacritical markings, which help us to understand. And I think the Bhagavad Gita used to have a section at the very back about how to pronounce different words and different combinations of letters, and I found that very useful. There are a number of words that you may hear me say that are a bit different from what you might have heard others say as the pronunciations. So I invite you to test me and to go to the Bhagavad Gita, to the pronunciation guide in the back, and see if you come up with the same pronunciations that I've come up with. Now, let's get back to your question, Janaki. Krishna, created the universe. All the elements of creation were here from his material energy. And then Lord Brahma was born on the lotus flower, the stem of which went down to the navel of the Mahavishnu, Karanadakashayi Vishnu. And you notice that there are 3 Vishnu forms in this material world, and in the spiritual world, the expansions of Lord Krishna are known as the Narayan forms. So Lord Narayan in the spiritual world, and also there are planets on which Lord Ramchandra, there is a planet on which the followers of Lord Ramchandra are, they go to once they have become purified from all desires in this material world. There is also a planet for Lord Nrsingadev, so I've heard. And I heard my spiritual master, Tamal Krishna Goswami, ask Shivaram Swami Maharaj when my spiritual master was visiting him in Hungary at a farm that they have established in Hungary. He asked him, does Lord Nrsingadev appear in his lion-like form or in his Narayan form on his planet? And I think Shivaram Maharaj said he appears in his human-like form. Now, these are things that I have not read in literature as myself, but we learn from different ways. We can learn by reading. We can also learn by hearing from authoritative sources. Now, so back to your point. Lord Krishna has gave all of this. First of all, he had to instruct Brahma what he was supposed to do, because Lord Brahma, he couldn't understand why he was here on this lotus flower, this huge lotus flower. And it had a stem that went down from it, so he dived down into the stem trying to find the source of the stem. Where's it coming from? And he couldn't find it, couldn't find the end of it. It was too far to go. So he came back up, and then he just sat. He decided just to sit and meditate. And that's when he heard what 2 syllables? Tapa. In other words, so he understood from that he needed to perform austerities. And then as a result of that, Lord Krishna gave him all of the information that he needed to create, I should say, to reestablish this material world according to what it had been before. And it had all the ingredients necessary for the living entities to come in and to enjoy. So the purpose of the Lord in creating the material world, first of all, was to give the living entities an opportunity to try to find pleasure and enjoyment apart from the spiritual world in which they were situated before. So it is said that we all we have our beginning in the spiritual world. And that because some of us had the desire to enjoy separately from Krishna, since Krishna is the only real object of desire and perfection in the spiritual world. So Krishna then established this material world and filled it full of planets, and then from time to time, not only planets, but universes, which emanate from the pores of his skin like little bubbles. And so each one of those universes then, the Lord, by glancing over them, impregnates his material energy with the living entities. Now, it's up to Lord Brahma then to take what he has been given by Krishna and to construct the different forms that are in this material world, particularly the bodies of the living entities. And he has to know then exactly what kind of body is needed by that living entity, not only to fulfill his desires, but also to help him get rid of those reactions that he has accumulated from previous lifetimes. So this material world is a very intricately devised place. This human body is extremely intelligently created. And if anybody says that this all came about by the vagaries of the material energy of the Lord, you can ask them things like, does that mean that if you got 747 disassembled in bits and pieces lying around a junkyard, scrapyard, there must be a scrapyard for big airplanes, where they take them apart and they cut them up and they put them through the fire and they turn them back into the elements and then they create another airplane. So it is if someone says that this happened, then you can say, well, is this like a tornado comes through this scrapyard where all these parts are present and suddenly you got a brand new 747 airplane or a watch? You can have all of the ingredients of the watch scattered around in various places, and according to this philosophy that the non-believers have, that somehow or other they just all came together. And so I think we've almost covered your question. So Lord Brahma gets all of his information about creating this material world and assigning each living entity to a particular kind of body and giving them activities to perform. So the answer is yes. He is the creator of it, and yes, Lord Krishna is the original creator and the supplier of all the ingredients. Otherwise, many times, here again using that word most, I got to get rid of that. Many times, Lord Brahma is a jiva soul. In other words, he's a living entity just as we are, although very advanced. And he knows practically all of the things that the super soul knows. Super soul being Shirodakshai Vishnu. All right, so enough on that. Anyone else have a comment or question you'd like to pose, please? And make sure you got the microphone in front of you. Danakeli Prabhu has arrived. Hare Krishna Prabhu. One of my favorite people on the planet. Yes, Krishna.
I liked one of the points you were making about how hearing about the creation, the universal form, it can seem a bit dry sometimes, but it's equally as important as the other pastimes in the later cantos. It just made me think of like this purport, I think in the beginning of the third canto or something, but Prabhupada is basically saying that, the activities of the universal form are equal to the Rasa Leela. And same with the
Equal
incarnation.
in what way?
They're, because they're the Lord's activities, they're on an equal platform, and they're just as important to hear as the Rasa Leela is or other esoteric pastimes.
Is that a comment or a question?
It was a comment that I liked that point you made.
Yes, the different activities of Krishna and his devotees that are given in the earlier cantos of the Srimad Bhagavatam are as necessary to us as the information in the Rasa Leela. Of course, Rasa Leela is not the only activity that is mentioned in the 10th canto. So some people say we can't read anything from the 10th canto until we've read everything through the first 9 cantos. Well, Prabhupada has shown us that that isn't necessarily the case, because early on he translated the 10th canto and put it in practically into a story form, in the form of the Krishna book. And now I think Krishna book is in 2 volumes. When it first came out, it was 3 volumes. But now it's been put into 2 volumes with a lot of beautiful pictures and such in it. And in there, so we might say Prabhupada thought that we were too immature for the 10th canto, then why would he do the Krishna book? To attract our minds to Krishna, no doubt about it. So he's trying to give us information about Krishna and the spiritual world and attract us to it so we can get over our attraction to these material bodies that we inhabit. Hare Krishna. May we stop now? Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Kalachandjidam ki jai. We offer our respectful obeisance to all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord who are just like desire trees, who fulfill the desires of everyone and who are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Vanchakalpatarubhischa kripasindu evacha patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Kuti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Everyone, if you have time, chant the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna.